going to be paid almost €500,000 in circumstances when the same government is saying that workers aren't going to get an increase in the minimum wage, that the increase in sick leave that was previously promised is not going to be delivered. And if the answer to the question is paying Brendan McDonagh €430,000 a year, well then, it's the wrong question being asked by the government. Because we have to remember the role that NAMA, under Brendan McDonagh's leadership, played in the creation of the conditions for the current housing crisis, whereby, the Irish state had ownership of a very large amount of property across this country that could have been used to avoid the housing crisis, and instead was the subject of fire sales, mostly to US-based vulture funds. So, this is a disastrous idea in every single respect. It's just an attempt to be seen to be doing something about the housing crisis, when in actual fact the policies that they're pursuing are going to get us into deepening the housing crisis, from withdrawing from or suspending the tenant in situ scheme, talking about more tax incentives to private developers, and refusing to do what's necessary, which is a state construction company building social and genuinely affordable homes. Secondly, we're going to debate twice today the issues in CHI. I think these are extremely serious. It's worth restating that if it was not for a whistleblower coming forward, prompting FOIs from a journalist from the ditch and parliamentary questions, well then all the horrible practices that are being revealed in Temple Street may well, in fact likely, would still be continuing. And so that points to a very serious systems failure. There are two scandals in CHI which are kind of being treated by the government at the moment as if they've got nothing to do with each other. On the one hand, the actions by the surgeon of inserting 3 metal springs in a completely unauthorised manner, bought from a company in Britain and then kind of smuggled into the operating theatre. That on the one hand, and on the other hand, the revelations in a report that now should be published, saying that it seems like up to 80% of operations, hip operations, osteotomies carried out in Temple Street were unnecessary, and potentially a motivation for those unnecessary surgeries was making money from those families who had private health insurance, and then 60% unnecessary surgeries in Kappa. But it's kind of treated like these two separate things just happen to exist in the same hospital. Whereas I was in touch with the whistleblower again last week, and he pointed to all the kind of systems failures that would just allow this to happen. For example, CHI should have been able to see we're doing all these operations, these osteotomies over here in Temple Street. We're not doing them in Crumlin. There's a disparity. Why is there a disparity? Clearly one thing is wrong, and it's, an investigation should have been triggered. Similarly, in terms of the actions of the surgeon, which relate to the springs, but also other operations, again, this should have been systems in place whereby, one badly acting doctor is not able to get away with this kind of practice. I also met with a woman last week, week before, whose daughter was probably the victim of one of these unnecessary surgeries. I'm going to speak about her case in the Dáil today. Quite horrific, the impact on her daughter. She was placed under a lot of pressure to do this operation. She was previously told, no, there'll be no need for any operation, and then all of a sudden you needed both hips done. She continues to suffer pain, which may well be, after talking to a doctor, a consequence. It's not just that if you get it done unnecessarily, you may have the same negative consequences as someone who does need it. In fact, if you get it done and you don't need it, there are potentially significant negative impacts in terms of long-term pain. The other shocking thing is that she explained how she was put under pressure for her second daughter to also have it done, despite the fact that she got other alternative doctors' opinions saying, no, there's no way, no, she doesn't need this whatsoever. And the doctor who was responsible for doing the first hip surgeries kind of insisted, went in, looked at the charts themselves, said, no, she definitely needs the hip surgery. Then she went back to her other doctor in the Coombe, who said, no, this is nonsense, she does not need this hip surgery. So, really, really horrific practice. Final thing I'll say very quickly is I think it's quite outrageous that Micheál Martin, the Taoiseach of this country, is adding to the witch hunt against NECAP, saying that they have questions to answer. We all know why this witch hunt is taking place. It's taking place because NICAP have used their platform to call out and oppose Israel's genocide in Gaza. And the Taoiseach should be applauding an Irish artist for doing that, should be defending an Irish artist for doing that, as opposed to joining in a witch hunt against a band that says provocative things, that has provocative lyrics, as many artists do, and they should not be policed by Taoiseach or parliamentarians or the media or whatever, and effectively, attempt to be cancelled because of their statements on Israel's genocide.
Yeah, and just continuing on about that issue. So the Taoiseach it is something else that a Taoiseach would intervene to challenge a pop rock rap band politically, judicially, in this way. And meanwhile, last week when the door was closed, we had a congressman masked from the US who has said that Gazan babies are terrorists, feted by the leader of the Seanad for Fianna Fáil. So maybe Micheál Martin might be better putting his attention into people who should be accountable for their views on genocide, because we're meant to be a country that supports the Palestinian people. So I agree completely that it's actually outrageous, and people are very incensed about that visit last week. We have had a huge amount of emails into our office about it. People just cannot understand how somebody like that could be invited here. Now, he was part of a delegation, but if you invite US congressmen or congresspeople, you're going to obviously get people who support the Israeli state and the Israeli military and what they're doing, and that shouldn't have happened. I think the second issue on the housing czar, I would just say, why do we have a housing minister when an unelected, unaccountable person is brought in on a salary of $500,000? This is crony Irish capitalism, golden circle stuff again, whereby somebody who's offered a job has to be given their completely outrageous same salary. And as has been said, NAMA could have resolved the housing crisis. It chose not to. Instead, it bailed out developers who are now practically all of them back in business, profiteering again off the housing crisis. It's very obvious what needs to happen on housing. It's obvious to everybody, except it seems the government, that we have huge swathes of public land. I could name so many sites in my own constituency. One was on the front of a local paper where they're talking about 7,000 houses. Why isn't that being progressed? Rather than, looking to Azar to supposedly crack some enigma or code when it's very, very clear what needs to be done. Just another issue I will mention is today I'm moving my bill to outlaw counselling notes in gender-based violence trials. Moving it at a first stage. We have some survivors, some therapists here who are backing it. And we now need the Minister for Justice to just solve this now once and for all. The last Minister promised to a year ago. Micheál Martin mentioned this, Simon Harris mentioned it, so they need to just do it. It's damaging, it's very, very re-traumatising, and it's of no evidential value either. It's just a misogynistic practice. And then the other issue I would mention is that we will be hosting migrant healthcare assistants here tomorrow in the AV room, who are being terribly exploited, who are being forcefully separated from their families, with their income being kept deliberately below thresholds that are needed to bring their families over, while they're looking after our families, our older people in nursing homes and private nursing homes. It's another scandal that continued from the last Dáil, and that has to be resolved. And lastly, I just want to mention as well that the backbenchers in Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, who are now coming out against multi-denominational and inclusive schools, in quite significant numbers. In an article, a number of ministers are mentioned, people in senior positions in government. It seems the woke moment that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael had is now finished. It lasted about 6 months. Apparently it's woke to not want your child forcefully indoctrinated in a school, when only 4% of primary teachers at the conferences over the weekend think that they should be teaching sacraments in school. So these people are so far behind, and they're now buoyed up by the far right, it would seem, have the confidence to come back out now and say what they really think and hold back progress in this country.
On the bill on counselling notes, I mean, if the government doesn't just do it itself and get on with it, I know PMB time is pretty tight, you have a lot of people to manage. Would you have any kind of timeline for when you'd be able to move second stage?
Well, I'm hoping a couple of things, that they reopen the lottery for bills, and we will certainly put it into that immediately. That will be one option, and the other option then is to, I've actually had private members' time. My first one quite recently was very early on, where I raised all of the points, so I'd have to seek somebody else's time. So look, I'm hoping that the Minister, we're actually due to meet him with survivors later this month. They need to outlaw this, and we'll be pressing that with him, that he can actually be a hero and do this.
Just on the, is it Congressman Ogles, you think you said, because I was off last week, so I wasn't familiar with this visit. So was it Senator Fiona O'Loughlin who received this Congressman Ogles? Is there some more details about that?
Sorry?
The congressman is...
Oh, no, it was Mark Daly.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the Cathaoirleach of the Seanad, yeah. So it was very senior. It wasn't just, he slipped through the net kind of thing. He posted about it on his social media. On Instagram, there's pictures there of Congressman Mast, who has made these outrageous statements that no Palestinian is innocent. Horrific person to have in here.
Do either of you have a view on the controversial comments that landed kneecap in hot water, the up Hamas, up Hezbollah chants at one of their concerts, and the kill your local MP comment at another concert?
Yeah. I mean, look, this is a provocative band. They use provocative statements. Look at how they dress. Look at their name. They're designed to be provocative. That's part of their art. And I really don't think that we should be getting into the business of policing what artists are saying. And I don't think you can abstract this attempt to police them from the context, which is like, the reason this stuff is coming up now is that people have trawled through their previous things they've said and so on, because of, they had that banner up at Coachella or the light show saying fuck Israel, end the genocide, and I think they're absolutely right to do so. I mean,
they upset the family of murdered MPs. Murdered MP David Amis in their remarks. Is that acceptable, do you think?
Well, they've already apologised for any upset that they may have caused. But, you know, I saw someone on Twitter making the point that is Bob Marley going to be exhumed and asked, did he shoot the sheriff? Are we going to be asking the Prodigy whether they started the fire? Do you know what I mean? Like, you have a latitude. These people are not politicians. If we got up and said some of these things, we would be, you know, subject to questioning and so on. These people are not politicians. They're artists. This is part of their art. And I think it's a pretty blatant attempt to punish them for speaking out about Gaza. And we should be supporting them and speaking out about Gaza, not sanctioning them or punishing them at all.
Can I just say one thing on it? I'm not going to politically start defending kneecap, because they've made their own statements on it since about Hezbollah and Hamas and that they don't support them. But what I would say is this, that there's so many bands that are playing gigs every night of the week that have been involved in, for example, violence against women, sexual abuse, and they don't seem to be the discussion by, you know, the British government or by the Irish government either. This is a very successful attempt, it would seem, to detract from the ongoing support of governments for the genocide on Gaza, and our own government as well, for its turning a blind eye to munitions, to the flights that are taking place, to the stopover in Shannon, to their lack of action in general. And I think that should be the focus of journalists, and not a band and what they might or might not have